And we are back with more Chips and Salsa show. This is Alsada here.
Hi, Alice.
Hola. And that was Martin Gonzalez. George, you still there?
Hola, hola, hola. I'm awake now.
Right on. Mr. Jules is here at the helm. And we broadcast live here from Central City Radio. Tempe. We're kind of edgy Tempe, but we're kind of edgy, so that's cool, right? All right. We have just an awesome, really great guest, one of my favorite personalities. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about him first. And the first time I met him was actually through a campaign. It was Janet McGill's campaign, I believe. He was working, he was doing a lot of political things. And it was amazing. He's a magician. He can do all kinds of impersonations from Ronald Reagan to Jack Benny to W.C. Fields, all kinds of stuff. And we're so thrilled to have him here. Brad Zinn, thank you so much for being in the studio.
I'm honored to be asked.
Hey.
Thank you very, very much. And I have a room full of friends here. I
Yes,
really
you
do,
do.
because we go back quite a ways.
Yes, you do. And we're going to talk. There's a lot of stuff that I would like to ask you and talk to you about.
Well, get to it.
And I will get to it. So I'm trying to pick.
The clock is ticking.
We were talking about over the break. It's always going to have the best stuff.
Oh, sure,
Right?
Absolutely.
And talking about the resurgence of interest in the different characters you do, because I went to a show and you can do Jack Benny and W.C. Fields, and the young people that are interested. And I think when you do that, you are helping to save America by bringing back those good family entertainment. Tell us about the young people that are interested.
Well, I've always felt like I was fighting the war on two fronts, so to speak. I fought on the political war front, but I also, with my show, I fight on the cultural front.
Boy, is that a culture war.
And there's a culture war in this country. There are thankfully a number of TV stations now that are dedicated to the golden era of television. There's METV, and not MTV, but MeTV, Antenna, Retro, Cozy, and they play all of the great, wonderful shows. And I'm addicted to these stations. I watch them all the time. But here's the thing. They're each of those old shows like Leave It to Beaver, Father Knows Best, Donna Reed, The Real McCoy, The Rifleman, all of them. Many of them quote passages from the Bible. They acknowledge God. The kids in the family pray. And when you think about it, you and I grew up with all that. We took that for granted. We never thought a thing about it. And every one of those shows had a little moral to it. It wasn't in your face. It wasn't big. It wasn't preachy, but it was there. It was be honest. Don't lie. Pride cometh before a fall. Greed is not good. Evil always loses. The good guy, the white hats won. Just little lessons, little morals that were buried in these stories, even in shows like The Twilight Zone and Comic Cons in town right now, and the Star Trek people would tell you that those shows all had a moral to the original Star Trek series. But we never noticed it.
And they get you thinking too.
That's right. And now you watch television today and you think you couldn't begin to quote a Bible passage on a prime time show.
That out like they bleep out a bad word.
Exactly. And where are the morals? It's all murder and mayhem and
sex.
And what you said it and
sex.
and little kids saying dirty words for the shock value of it. And it really is. It's disheartening is the word I use. It's disheartening because we know that there could be and there was something better out there, and it's the era that you and I grew up in. So when I put my show, The Great Comedians, together back in 1997, 98, 99, took 2.5 years to research and write. Everybody told me the same thing. Brad, you're doing Jack Benny and George Burns and Johnny Carson and Will Rogers and W.C. Fields and Groucho Marx and Red Skelton. The audience for these people, in 5 years, nobody's going to know who these people are. They're going to be forgotten. And who are you going to do this show for? Well, it's 15 years later, and we tour and travel all over the country. We've been on cruise ships around the world. We played the London Palladium in London. And I have kids, teenagers, that are fans of the show. I'll tell you 3 real quick stories. I was on a cruise ship, and there was a young 14-year-old boy who wanted to be an entertainer. And he'd been on the ship before I got on. I got on, did my show. And one night I was coming down the stairs and around a corner, and I bumped head on into this 14-year-old young man. I knew who he was. We'd never met, but I knew who he was because the cruise director had pointed him out to me and said he wants to be an entertainer. So we bumped into each other, and his eyes got big as saucers. And he looked up at me and he said, "You do the best, Johnny Carson." And I said, "Well, thank you." I said, "But let me ask you a question. You're 14 years old. Carson's been off the air like 20 years. How do you know who Johnny Carson even is? That you would know that I do an impression of Johnny Carson." He said, "From the infomercials." And I didn't realize that he had been seeing the commercials for the, for the Johnny Carson collection or whatever, the old shows. So he knew who Johnny was. And then I had, let me see. Oh, on another cruise, there was a. This is the best. This is the best. Maybe let's save this for last. We just did a show in upstate New York in October, and at the end of the show, everybody mostly over 50, 60 years old. And then I look at the end of the table where I'm signing autographs, and there's a young lady standing there. And I think maybe the only young person in the whole crowd. And I had just lectured the audience on sharing the memories of these great entertainers with young people in their lives. And here's a young person standing there. And I went, "Young person, young person." And everybody laughed. And she came up to me and she said, "You have no idea how meaningful your show was to me and how much I enjoyed it. And I do know who some of these people are." Generally, if I have anybody 25 or younger that comes up to me after the show, they all say a similar thing, a similar thing. It's all in the same vein. They all say, "I didn't know all of those people that you imitated, but you were funny." And I'll take that because now when they're flipping channels on the TV and they come across an old black and white movie, maybe Bob Hope or the Marx Brothers or an old rerun of a Groucho Marx You Bet Your Life or a Jack Benny rerun or a George Burns rerun, they'll stop and they'll realize that's who he was doing, and they'll watch. And if I can just get them to watch long enough, we'll hook them. We'll get them. And there's teachers that use like Laurel and Hardy movies as a reward. At first, the kids are like, "What is this with a black and white Laurel?" But after a while, they go, "Teacher, aren't you going to show us another Laurel and Hardy?" They get hooked on it. They love it. The Three Stooges, the Marx Brothers. The kids love this, and it's part of our common cultural heritage that we're so poor in passing on to the next generation. So now let me tell you the best one. This was a cruise we were on in the Mediterranean. How much time have we got? Are we okay? I got a minute, 2 minutes? Okay. There was a young man in a wheelchair. He was probably 13. I don't know for sure, but it appeared to be maybe this was a bucket list trip, like a final wish trip cruise. And he had his parents with him, and he had an older brother. Now, the older brother had to be about 18, 19 years old, wearing like a Megadeth t-shirt, the goth look. He's got piercings and tattoos and, pretty scary looking 18, 19-year-old kids.
Young person, young person.
Yeah, young person. But his younger brother was in the wheelchair. So when you're an entertainer on a cruise ship, whenever you're outside the cabin, you're on. You have to be, you're part of the crew at that point. And so you have to be nice to everybody. So we were in port, and the ship couldn't dock. You had to take the tinder from the dock out to the ship because the water wasn't deep enough. And we're standing there at the end of the day, and I'm waiting for the tinder to come in and pick me up, take me back to the ship. And up comes this young man in the wheelchair and his older brother. Parents are not there. And being the entertainer, being the cruise person, I turned to him and I said, "Well, fellas, how did you enjoy your day in port? Did you have a good time today?" And they said, "Oh, yeah, we had a great time." And the older brother says to me, "I've been meaning to talk to you." And I thought, uh-oh, here it comes. I thought, I'm going to get an earful. And he said, "Yeah." He said, "I've been meaning to thank you." And I said, "Thank me?" I could have fallen in the water at that point. You could have knocked me over with a feather. I said, "Thank me?" I said, "Thank you. Thank me for what?" He said, "I've been trying to tell my little brother about all these great comedians, and you made my job a whole lot easier."
Wow. Great story.
It was a wonderful story, and I'll never forget that to the day I die. So even though people tell me, "Brad, all these old entertainers, nobody remembers them, nobody cares," the opposite is true. People do come, they enjoy the show, and I always tell an audience, bring a teenager with you, because if they'll just come and laugh as a family together, then we can bridge that generation gap and pass our humor heritage on to the next generation.
Just an exposure. A nephew of mine was watching Little McCoy's being well born. I mean, he loves that. Just a little bit of exposure.
Well, little Luke, I we're going out to the North 40.
That's all it takes.
Yeah.
We're going to be back with more Brad Things going to tell you about this world-class variety show, and we got some topics to do and all kinds of stuff here at the Chips and Salsa Show with Martin, George, and yours truly, Alice Lara. Thank you.
Welcome back to Chips and Salsa, my 31st show, and we got some exciting news, well, sad news coming up a little later, but well,
It'll be good.
it's good. It's a transition that we're going to go through, but for now, I want to take it back to my friend Brad Zinn, and throw a skit here, and it's going to be about 5 minutes, 6 minutes, and I want you all to enjoy this because I have in the past, and it is great.
Well, and maybe we should just say too, the reason that we'd like to do it is because of the Patriots in the Park, where Brad will be with us, and that's my LD27, and it's about Patriots in the Park, and have all kinds of good entertainment, and some veterans will be there.
June the 14th.
It's June the 14th.
Flag Day.
Flag Day, exactly. At Bravo Park, which is 19th Avenue and Vineyard in South Mountain. So you don't want to miss it. You want to be there. But part of
It's
this,
free.
it's free. There's going to be
Free food.
raspadas, snow cones,
Yeah.
lots of comida for those of you.
Jumpers for the kids.
Food, yeah, bouncy house.
And
all
Brad
that
will
stuff.
be there. I mean, that alone
Is reason to stay away.
We have Patrick Henry there in costume, and other invited guests that will be speaking. And it's going to be a great, great show. It's Flag Day, and it's the best way to spend a Sunday.
And the mayoral candidate, we now have a Republican mayoral candidate, and the branch will be there too. So we thought because of this, in doing the Papers in Park, we would love for Brad to give this special gift. That was George's idea to do it.
Thank you. Let me set this up for you real quick because I'm going to have to take my headphones off. I close my show, The Great Comedians, with this recreation of Red Skelton's recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance. Now, he did this on January 14th, 1969, in front of millions of people on CBS television, and it was twice read into the congressional record. And this is word for word as Red Skelton presented his interpretation of the Pledge of Allegiance, 1969. All right, so well, here I am. Now getting back to school. I left home when I was 10 years old because I was hungry. No, it's true. It's true. I only went to the 7th grade, but I had a wonderful teacher back then. He was a real sage, at least of my time. He had such wisdom. He was the principal of the Harrison School in Vincennes, Indiana. And he was listening to us boys and girls recite the Pledge of Allegiance one day. Mr. Laswell was his name, Mr. Laswell. He said, "Boys and girls, I have been listening to you recite the Pledge of Allegiance all semester, but it appears that it has become monotonous to you. Or could it be that you do not know the meaning of the words? If I may I recite the pledge for you and try to give you a definition of each of the words. I, meaning me, an individual, a committee of one. Pledge, dedicate all of my worldly goods to give without self-pity. Allegiance, my love and my devotion. To the flag, our standard, Old Glory, a symbol of freedom. Wherever she waves, there is respect because your loyalty has given her a dignity that shouts freedom is everybody's job. Of the united, that means that we have all come together. States, individual communities that have united into 48 great states, 48 individual communities that have each with pride and dignity and purpose, all divided by imaginary boundaries and yet united into 48 great states with a common purpose, and that's love of country, of America. And to the republic, a state in which sovereign power is invested in representatives chosen by the people to govern. And government is the people, and it's from the people to the leaders, not from the leaders to the people, for which it stands. One nation, meaning so blessed by God, indivisible, incapable of being divided, with liberty, which is freedom and the right of power to live one's own life without threats, fears, or some sort of retaliation, and justice, the principle or quality of dealing fairly with others, for all, which means, boys and girls, that it's as much your country as it is mine. And now, boys and girls, may I hear you recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ladies and gentlemen, since I was a small boy in 1925, 2 states have been added to our country, and 2 words have been added to the Pledge of Allegiance, under God. Wouldn't it be a pity if someone were to say that that was a prayer, and that would be eliminated from schools too? Good night, and may God bless. Thank you.
It's still very powerful every time I hear it.
Every time I hear it, it's just, it is powerful. And he's gifted to bring that to the public. So people
Well,
can
I've been honored to share it with so many different groups and many different veterans groups as well. I enjoy especially doing it for our veterans because they truly are the ones that stand in the gap, stand in the breach, and make it possible for all the rest of us to do what it is that we do on a daily basis. If they weren't there, Lord help us, we wouldn't know where we would be without them.
Do we have a minute too? We can talk about the World Class Variety Show. Oh, okay, good. So tell us about this. Is going to be a really cool thing.
I hope so. In November of last year, on the week of Thanksgiving, I became the Thanksgiving turkey last year.
Just last year?
Yes, they sliced me open and took out my giblets. I had my gallbladder removed the day after Thanksgiving last year. And while I was recuperating, it occurred to me that it occurred to me. Okay. It occurred to me that June the 6th is going to be my 40th professional anniversary in show business.
Wow.
40 50 years a performer, 40 years without a job. And we've done a lot in the last 40 years. But I wanted to throw a big party, but I didn't want it to just be, come celebrate Brad's Inn. I wanted to do something nice for somebody else. So I partnered up with the Military Assistance Mission. Margie Bonds is a Gold Star mom. She lost her son in Haditha, Iraq in 2005, and she heads up MAM, Military Assistance Mission. So this is a big fundraiser for them, and we have a tremendous show lined up on Saturday night, June the 6th, at the Chaparral Suites. Go to AZMAM, AZM as in Mary, AM.org, AZMAM.org, and look for upcoming events. You'll find out how to get tickets. Deadline to get tickets is Tuesday night at 5 o'clock because we have to give the hotel a head count. It's dinner, it's a show, it's a tax deduction, and you'll sleep well at night knowing that you did something for our men and women in uniform and our vets who need your help. We've got Pat McMahon, Michael Finney, the Arizona Trio, Randall Hidden, the Speed Artist, Jerry Lane, the Ventriloquist, the Taylor Family Circus, and my wife Brenda's going to do her vaudeville sand paintings, and I'll be there to fool around a little bit myself. It's going to be a fabulous evening. We're going to raise a lot of money for our troops and our vets.
You have to go. You have to go. If you haven't seen Brad, it would be worth it just to Brad and it really would be.
Yeah.
So we will be right back with more of the show, with more Chips and Salsa show. Don't go away.
That was clear. Great job, by the way.
Thank you.
The one with the fancy hats is definitely the one for me. I want to wear a fancy hat. I want to have a sombrero, and I want to have it like with neon lights and lasers shooting out.
Don't you have one of those at home already? Like a little one?
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
one, admit it. It's with those platforms.
You know, in 1970, in the early 70s, I had platform shoes. I had those high heel shoes for guys, and they were a candy apple red patent leather shoe, and I thought I was the coolest kid in the world.
Okay, I want your mom to find a picture because I gotta see that.
No, there's no pictures, but I remember going to my 7th grade dance. I had just bought those shoes, and I bought some white pants and a white shirt, and I had these red shoes. They looked like something out of Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, but I didn't care. I looked fantastic, and I had the bag to match and everything.
Saturday Night Fever, John Travolta.
It could have been.
You have a leisure suit or something going on.
I thought I was looking pretty cool then. We all did, didn't we? Well, listen, I'm so glad that you're listening to the show Chips and Salsa. We're here, Martin Gonzalez, George Ortiz.
Here.
Alice Lara.
Blabbermouth, Alice.
Check, Alice Blabbermouth. You haven't said guac on once in the show.
I did. Actually,
You did? I should pay attention.
No,
I should
you know
listen
what?
to the show.
I said getting my guac on.
Ah.
Get your guac on now, man.
So I mentioned earlier in the show that I have a lot of favorite isms. Patriotism, capitalism, conservatism. I am unabashedly, unrepentantly conservative. I absolutely, listening to you, Brad, reminded me of why I think America is the most incredible place on earth. More incredible than Disneyland. But it is the most, there is something to American exceptionalism. I know it's not popular. People don't like talking about why America is better than other countries, but it just simply is, and I believe it. And people have believed it for many hundreds of years, going back to Alexander Hamilton, who was one of the founding fathers, and he was one of the authors of Federalist Papers and the Constitution, and he was a great conservative. There was also a great conservative many years ago by the name of Ezra Taft Benson. Some of you might know him as a religious leader of the Mormon Church. Some of you might know Ezra Taft Benson because he was the Secretary of Agriculture during both presidential terms of Dwight Eisenhower. But Ezra Taft Benson gave a speech called Stand Up for Freedom before the Assembly Hall at Temple Square on February 11th, 1966. And it was given to the Utah Forum for the American Idea. And I'm going to read to you an excerpt from that speech. And you tell me where we are and how we got there. This is something that was 50 years ago. And has anything changed? And who's doing what? Let me read this. Our republic and constitution are being destroyed while the enemies of freedom are being aided. How? In at least 10 ways. Number 1, by diplomatic recognition and aid, trade, and negotiations with the communists. 2, by disarmament of our military defenses. 3, by destruction of our security laws and the promotion of atheism by decisions of the Supreme Court. 4, by loss of sovereignty and solvency to international commitments and membership in world organizations. 5, by undermining of local law enforcement agencies and congressional investigation committees. 6, by usurpations by the executive and judicial branches of our federal government. 7, by lawlessness in the name of civil rights. 8, by staggering national debt with inflation and the corruption of the currency. 9, I need to move this here. 9, by a multiplicity of executive orders and federal programs which greatly weaken local and state government. 10, by the sacrificing of American manhood by engaging in wars We apparently have no intention of winning. Does any of that sound familiar, Alice?
Extremely familiar. And it's 1966, right?
That
So
was in
that's
1966.
next year, 50 years.
Sounds like now.
He could have said this. He could have given a speech yesterday.
Fortune teller, political fortune teller to the max. Or probably paying close attention, like in the conversation before. The Atlas Shrugged author.
Ayn Rand. That's a great book, by the way. It's a big book to read. I mean, it's like 5,000 pages. It's ridiculous. But
Didn't you say you had somebody else brought this up too? I mean, I'm talking to Brad. So. Sorry.
Well, there's in addition to Ezra Taft Benson, who obviously that was a pretty spot-on analysis. That was 1966. In 1959, The Naked Communist by Cleon Skousen listed 45 goals of the Communist Party USA. I think at last check, about 42, 43 of them have been accomplished. That was 1959. And Dr. Fred C. Schwartz of the Christian Anti-Communism Crusade started here in the United States in 1953 and wrote many books and newsletters and was predicting much of the same types of things. And Robert Welch, who was the head of the John Birch Society, gave a very similar speech in 1959. So the warnings have been going on. But what it all goes to prove is that the left never changes. They have a utopian vision of the future that they will not let go of. And every time it fails, and it will continue to fail, but every time it fails, they just say, well, the right people haven't tried it yet. Well, they'd have to revolutionize human nature to make it work, because 2,000 years of human nature proves that it will never work. When you put man at the center of the universe, you have taken away the underpinnings of what makes life here on earth possible. You have to put God at the center of the universe, and then everything else will fall into place.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. William F. Buckley reminds me of conservative. He said, a conservative is a fellow who's standing athwart history yelling, stop.
I love William Buckley.
He's great.
Miss him.
He was an interesting character. I'm kind of doing a William F. Buckley right now, sort of leaning to one side, you know. He always had that habit.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is William F. Buckley, and tonight on Firing
Very good. You know, we haven't had a chance here, but another very favorite conservative guy of us, and I was too young and stupid to even get to realize how funny it was President Ronald Reagan. He was a conservative mine also.
Well, Mommy and I are so happy to be with all of you here on Chips and Salsa. Now, you know, a lot has been made of my age. As a matter of fact, many people have said that I knew Thomas Jefferson personally. Well, that's just not true, because Thomas Jefferson was from Virginia and I was from California.
That was awesome. That was awesome, Brad. Brad, you said something, and it got me thinking of a William F. Buckley quote. As I was searching through here, crazily looking for it. Here's what it is: idealism is fine, but as it approaches reality, the cost becomes prohibitive. I love that William F. Buckley quote.
That's a brilliant piece of insight. Very close to Margaret Thatcher's socialism works great until you run out of other people's money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She's great. Do you do any women impressions?
I beg your pardon.
Well, not.
It's the pause. It's always the pause. The pause always gets you in trouble. Do you do any? When see, you gotta watch the
I
pause.
wonder if you could do Margaret Thatcher. Jimmy digs off top.
No, but the calla lilies are in bloom, you know. This is Catherine Hepburn and Spencer and I. That's about as good as it gets.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, she had a deep voice, so that's, you know, it's not
Either that or Dame Edna.
Not,
You were one
not
of
a
the
real
others.
stretch.
That's right. But
That was
George, do you do any impressions of any famous conservative with female icons? Maybe Jan Brewer. I heard you do a really good Jan Brewer. No?
No.
Only
It's that
only
big
amongst
finger.
our friends.
He only has that big foam finger.
Do you have a big foam finger?
Yeah. Wrong finger. Finger in the face.
Maybe you do Hillary. Hillary just sounds mean and nasty.
You know, hey, no, you know who did Hillary? Yoko Ono.
Yeah, her, yeah.
Did you hear about that?
Well, that's been out a few weeks back.
Hey, now.
Yeah. Which is something like I really don't care about doing that.
Yeah, that's TMI.
TMI.
I think she's just trying to be relevant in the conversation. She wants to be part of the conversation. That's ridiculous. It's ludicrous.
And I wonder if
It doesn't-
she
Well,
sang while
I
she
think
was.
I think when Paul McCartney heard that, maybe that's why he's giving up
Oh.
dope.
That's it. That's all.
How about a John Wayne?
Well, you asked me why I love America. Oh, give me a minute and I'll tell you. Have you ever seen a Nevada sunrise or an Arizona sunset? You know, they say that courage is being scared but saddling up anyway.
We're going to saddle up for another segment, our final segment of the show. Chips and Salsa, thank you so much for listening. Hang on. More to come. Like, contractor, private government contractors, or, you know what I mean? Like a mercenary kind of, you know what I mean?
Like he wasn't supposed to be there.
Exactly.
But we officially know nothing.
Exactly. That's why that's probably.
Yeah.
And we're back with more chips and salsa. This is our last segment of the show.
No!
Yes.
Say it isn't so.
Sí.
Stop it!
Sí.
Why are you even talking about this?
Porque tenemos que hablar. That's right.
Okay.
We've been doing this show number 31.
30?
By the way, congratulations to Brad, married 33 years.
33 happy years. That's 20 for her and 13 for me.
And for myself, 31 years.
I'll be sleeping in the garage tonight.
There you go. Brenda, please take care of him. And for us, Mark and I, it's 31 years. But with this 31st show, there are going to be some different, some changes happening with Chips and Salsa. This will actually be our last show as Chips and Salsa show. We are going to continue. Format might change a little bit differently. And, we certainly had fun. We wanted to talk about how we actually got this thing started. George and I used to do a show a long time ago.
Radio.
That's what it was. And we love radio. If you ever have done radio, you fall in love with it. Martin and I have a history. We both used to be producers at KFYI.
Talk radio, yeah.
Talk radio. He was there, and I was there after him. And we wanted to have a show to show the Latino perspective because there's plenty of the liberal Latinos out there, and we just felt like we needed to have our say in it as well.
As conservatives.
Conservatives,
yes.
Yeah. So Latino conservatives. So we're sitting around at lunchtime,
getting high,
and Martin, you should
smoking
tell me,
weed.
Really, this was your idea.
What?
That was what you call it.
Oh, well, you know what? We were bouncing. We were actually eating chips and salsa. It was kind of a no-brainer. We were at a Mexican restaurant, and I said, hey, how about we call it chips and salsa? But the funny thing is, we all kind of nodded and thought, yeah, maybe this does work. Because anybody that you mention the name to, they go, I love chips and salsa.
Yeah, who doesn't like chips and salsa?
So we figured that we would, leverage that thing that people have for chips and salsa, and they would attach the good feelings that they have for the chips and salsa to our show, our humble show, our lovable show.
And it's been a blast doing the show, and we want to keep doing it. And we hopefully we'll keep doing it with Mr. Jules here on the Central City Radio Station. And we're probably going to call it something a little different, but we don't plan on going anywhere, right, guys?
No, not really. It's just simply.
I love the chips and salsa.
This is just sort of an evolution. This is a natural evolution. The thing about beauty is that beauty is fleeting. There's not necessarily beauty in constancy, because when I think of beauty, I think of like a rose, and what makes a rose beautiful is that it only lasts for 6 days. It doesn't last for 6 months. It doesn't last for 6 years. If you wanted that, you'd buy a silk rose, but then it is not beautiful. It's not the same, right? So sometimes there's beauty in things that come to an end and a closure. And I think this show was beautiful. And it's beautiful because it ran its course and its time. And we've had some changes in staffing and personnel. And so we are going to reconfigure and reevaluate and redesign and hopefully be able to present something very special to those of you who have been listening to the show. And we certainly appreciate all of you who have given of your time to support us by listening to the show. And we're going to invite you to keep looking at our individual Facebook accounts, because we might have some news for you very soon about what might be going on, right, George?
Yep, we have a lot of Facebook friends, I do, and a lot of them know us as the Chip and Salsa Show, and a lot of them have liked us. I have family in Virginia and people in Texas, and we have in New Mexico.
New Mexico, California, Colorado.
And they listen. Yeah, and they listen. They listen. And then we were being streamed in Chicago, but I don't know how that turned out. But a lot of people like the Chips and Salsa Show. We have, as of today, I think it's 500 and
we're almost at 600.
Almost 600 likes since November, and we haven't. And it wasn't that we paid for the likes. These were likes that people just got up and liked the show.
We have big families.
And it was good, and it was a good run as the Chips and Salsa Show. But we're going to continue, and we would like everybody to chime in with a new name if you want on our Facebooks. Everybody has my Facebook. Everybody has Alice's Facebook, and just chime in with names, and you'll be surprised.
I have a name.
Okay.
How about ceviche and metiche?
Ceviche and metiche.
What do you think about that one? Ceviche and metiche.
Ceviche and metiche. Well, we're all metiche, so yeah.
Yeah, in some form, yeah.
It does make sense.
Ceviche and metiche. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Kind of keeping it in the Tex-Mex kind of a theme.
Or the crazy Latinos.
Well, we're going to come back better and stronger, actually.
Crazy Latinos. And we are crazy. Although the two.
Bino Latino.
Since there's two of us and one sleeper, me, I sleep a lot. So maybe the two.
You're sleeping now, aren't you?
Yeah. I wake up once in a while and hey, the show is on. But it's so cool.
Dreamer and we need something with like a dreamer.
Julian, you keep telling me something. I'm sorry. I just don't know what you're trying to say.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We can hear you.
What are your Facebooks?
Oh, just our personal Facebook.
Yeah, so we know.
Lara. Alice, and everybody knows Lara. Lara.
What's mine?
You're Jorge.
Gorge.
Oh, hey. Ortiz.
That's it.
You know what?
You're on Facebook too, Martin. Martin Gonzalez. You're not on there very much, but you do have a Facebook page.
I do have a Facebook, and I'm going to look it up because I honestly don't remember. Isn't it Martin Gonzalez?
Yeah, I tag you on
I don't use it. You know why? Because
care.
I use Twitter.
You don't even care, is it?
I use my firearms channel Twitter for that.
There's a lot of names out there, a lot of suggestions out there. Bring them on. You know,
or go to our Central City Radio Facebook. We'll keep announcing that too. We have our social media director. Will keep everybody updated. So keep checking in, and the Central City Radio website.
And you would have created something that's going to be going on for a long time.
And you are a part of the show, and want you to continue to be. And we thank you very much, all of you out there, family, friends, everyone.
I'm going to hit Control Alt Delete, and that should like magically end our show. It seems like that's kind of what we would need to do, don't you think?
And we'll be back just in another form. So get your guac on.
I love that. Get your guac on.
The guacamoles.
The holy guacamole.
The holy guacamole. Oh.
This is exactly how that first meeting went, where we were just sitting around throwing around a bunch of crazy
It's the
ideas.
same. We had chips and salsa. Thank you so much, Brad Zinn, for filling in.
You're welcome. If you want to stay with the Mexican food theme, how about a side of sour cream?
Ooh.
Well, that's it. That's our guest.
Yes.
That's it. I'm the side of sour cream.
You know, that's really the only thing that makes a chimichanga good, I think, is the side of sour cream.
Reverend Jackson just said, do you want me to say that? No. We'll save it for your show. Is that going to be it, guys?
Yep.
Julian, how much time we got?
Now's the time.
That's it.
Julian says it's
Goodbye.
all
We're so glad
to
we
all
had
our
this time
company.
together. Everybody
Okay, we're
sing,
dating ourselves,
here you
that's for
are.
sure.
Get your guacamole.
All right. Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Thank
It
you.
was fun.